Okay, we are live, I believe. We are live with my daughter. Hold on one second. She's out. Come on, come on. We are live with Juliana for her debut on YouTube. How you doing? Juliana, how you doing? Welcome. Would be nice. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. This is an Ask Me Anything about fatherhood, birth, this channel, anything. So, let me know in the chat. But let me know if you can hear me. And please hit the like button. It really helps fuel the algorithm. And Juliana would appreciate it. Maybe. Maybe not. She was just sleeping, so. Do you know that you're live on YouTube? This is your first live stream. What do you think about it? But we're going to talk about all the things that I've learned from this experience so far, which is quite a bit. It's really taught me. It's just been teaching me about cognitive development, and it's amazing to just see a sentient being, start to develop their mind and expand their world and learn, their own body and their world around them and other beings around them. And it's been quite the experience. It really is an amazing thing. So this is the reason right here that I have been away a bit, and why we took a break. We will kick off the new year, very strong. There's lots of plans that I have for new types of content this upcoming year. And it's just been a little bit hectic with scheduling. So I appreciate the grace. Even, tonight, when you have a baby, you are on their schedule, not so much your schedule. And, they have the saying, you make plans and God laughs. That's definitely always true, but when you have a baby, it's you make plans, God laughs, and the baby laughs, both of them at the same time. But she's doing well, and the birth story was an incredible experience, and going through the process of having a child is something that, I've shared on here with my wife, some challenges that we've had with it. And, we finally, she's here. We were blessed with this cute, adorable baby. And it's definitely a humbling thing, It's something that you really realize your own vulnerability with it, because there's so much that's out of your control. But you have to just remember that God is in control, and that even when things don't go the way that you want, there is a plan that is in place that's better than a plan that you could have had. But I understand that, as much as anybody, that is a very difficult thing to remember in the moment. But it is true. Every single partition of sentience by God from his whole into little partitions like this one, like you, like me, is an intentional one. And so is, it when it doesn't happen as well. So, so I will start, I guess, off with sharing the story a bit. But like I said, let me know any questions that you have in the chat. If she gets a little bit fussy, then we will, remove her from the live stream. So I don't know how long you guys are going to get blessed with her appearance, but she's doing okay right now. How you doing? What do you think? It's amazing how much they have to learn you. I've said this I think I said this on the last stream, but one of the things that I learned through this is that women become mothers when maybe even before they become pregnant, but definitely when they become pregnant, they are mothers already. Their body is working. They are working. They are making choices already as a mother, and but I would say fatherhood really happens after the baby is born. It's a different experience. And so while babies come out, they kind of have a relationship already with their mom. They develop a relationship with their dad. And so that is kind of an interesting thing that I've noticed and just had to, learn through this. And it's definitely an interesting observation. But, makes you think a lot about like the roles of mothers and fathers, and just gender in general, which we talk about quite a bit on here, and that comes into play when you have a kid and when you are married, and even before you have a kid, obviously. So, but I guess I will start with the story. But so, as many of you know, my wife and I have struggled in the past with pregnancy. We had some miscarriages. And we've discussed it in some of the previous live streams that I did with my wife on here. We got pregnant pretty much immediately after marriage. And we, experienced multiple miscarriages. And a year ago, last year, for my wife's birthday, we were out, and I had taken her out on a date for her birthday, for the day. We got a call from the doctor basically telling us that we were going to have another miscarriage because we had a test done, and there's just hormonal tests that they do, and if hormones are going up, then the pregnancy is continuing. If hormones start to drop, then it just tells the doctor that the pregnancy is not going to continue. And so that was quite an unfortunate bit of news on my wife's birthday. But we got pregnant again, and prayed for a successful, healthy baby. And my wife was due. The baby was due right around my wife's birthday, and she didn't want to have the baby on her birthday. And it was crazy because my wife's birthday was 17th. This baby was born on the 18th, as I've said on this channel before already. And it was the Sabbath. So we weren't going to do anything for my wife's birthday, but we were going to do something the next night. So we were at home for the Sabbath. And we were expecting the baby the next week. And then we are tired, and it's the end of the night. We get up to go to bed, and my wife's water breaks right as we get up, to go to bed, like a movie. And that's not typical, I guess. I don't know. I've only had one experience to compare to, but apparently it's not as usually obvious as it is in the movies. But this one was. And so I immediately was in the zone, and was okay, we packed for this, we planned for this. I had just finished packing the night before, our go bags. We start packing up to last minute things to go to the hospital, and right as we're about to leave, my wife is already having contractions that are 5 minutes apart, which means you're in labor. And as we're about to walk out the door, Paulina says to me, I know this sounds crazy, but I can't leave the sink like that. You have to do the dishes before we go to the hospital. So I do the dishes as fast as I possibly can. And it was a stack of dishes too, I will say. We get in the car, and guys, I'm thinking we're going to have to pull over, and I'm going to have to deliver this baby, on the side of the road, because contractions are getting to within minutes apart. And we get to the hospital, and they're like not gonna admit us until like they check her out first to make sure she's in labor, because a lot of women think they're in labor but they're not. And as they're walking in, they're like, why is the floor wet? And I was like, her water broke, like we're yeah, that's why we're here. And they were like, just looked at me, they were like, okay, you can come in, she's in labor. And we get in, and they check her out, and contractions are like within 3 minutes probably apart, something like that, something ridiculous. Normally labor is hours and hours long, and we're grateful it was not for us, but it was also like quite eventful just because it was so quick. But I missed this part, but it was my wife and I got up on her birthday that night at 11:59, and her water broke at midnight. At midnight. Not like 12:01, not 11:59. We got up, it was like 11:59. I looked at my phone, and and we got up and we headed to bed, and as soon as we got up, it was actually like midnight on the dot, water broke. And so she was not born on my wife's birthday. She was born the day after, but technically it was the night of my wife's birthday. How crazy is that? God, what are the odds of that? Probably 100%. And so we had the baby within 2 hours and 42 minutes after midnight. So she was born at 2:42 a.m., which is an interesting number. And, I'm not claiming to know what that means, but it's just an interesting number. I like it. And she was born 7 pounds, 14 ounces, which is amazing just because that was the date that my wife and I first met. And it was the date of our wedding, because we got married we planned our wedding, and one of the dates that was open was that date, and we were going to get married on a Wednesday because it was just cheaper. And it so happened to land that one of those days was the date that we were, that we met. So we did that one. And that was exactly the weight that she was born at. She's passed out right now, which is a good thing, I guess. And here, let me put her down for a minute. There you go. We'll see if she stays asleep. But again, what are the odds of that? Like probably 100%. And the birth was quite like the experience. It's kind of a blur, to be quite honest. And but we get there, they check everything out. They check the heart rate of the baby. They check the heart rate of the mother, and everything, looks good. But there's a lot of contractions very quick. And so the birth is progressing very fast. And then she ends up, like I said, being born 2 hours and 42 minutes after water broke. Exactly. And that was probably maybe 2 hours after we got to the hospital, something like that. So we were barely there. And, she was born, and especially if there's a lot of contractions very quickly, then, babies just come out not, the normal color. They're normally like blue. And there's this transition that is amazing that happens as babies are born, where they're breathing amniotic fluid, and then they go to breathing air for the first time, which is just an amazing thing. And, she came out and she wasn't breathing, and she was like blue. And my heart is like in my chest, and I was breathing with my wife, like trying to get her to push the whole time. And I'm not breathing normally. I'm like, trying to breathe with her, but also holding my breath. And I think the nurses looked at me like, do you need medical attention? Because apparently I looked like I was about to pass out, which is not uncommon for fathers during labor. And just because you're just holding your breath, it's not because of gore or anything like that. And but she came out, and then I was just waiting, and then we heard her cry, and that is like the most relieving noise that you could ever experience, is just hearing your baby cry for the first time. And it's amazing because it's such a traumatic experience for the mother, which is my wife did amazing, and she really did. And they must just go into like autopilot or something, I don't know. But and as a father, you just feel so helpless, which makes it kind of different kind of traumatic for you. And the only one who I just kept thinking about was like that this was more traumatic for was the baby. The baby goes from like not breathing air to breathing air for the first time, from not seeing light, really. I mean, I'm sure they see shadows and stuff while they're in the womb, to seeing light for the first time, from being warm and kept at a consistent temperature their entire, existence up until that point, their entire life up until that point, to experiencing temperature change for the first time. It's got to be so traumatic. I mean, she's here. She did great as well. She's passed out right now. Which is, we were hoping she would just be content at this point. You have to time everything with the baby. You have to feed them right before you want them to be calm, and she's fine. I'll just leave her here. She's okay. Yeah, no, she's okay. Thank you, though. It's thanks. From there, it's just this constant learning curve for you and for the mom. On like, as a woman, you have to learn. Your body has changed so much. It's doing things that it's never done before. It starts producing breast milk, and like there's all these just bodily changes that you have to figure out and get used to. As a man, you have to figure out how to deal with all of this, and the baby just has to figure out the world. And it's been just a fascinating experience. I mean, I'm kind of stumbling over my words a little bit because, to be honest, when I think about it, I'm like, oh, there's such a story here, and there really is. And my wife is going to do a more detailed, story when she has everything, that gathered that she wants to say about it. And when I think back on it and I want to tell the story, it honestly just comes out as a blur. We stayed in the hospital, a couple days, and that was really nice because, the nurses are there and helping you to just learn how to feed the baby every 2 hours. And, you literally have to wake up every 2 hours and to feed a baby. And it's an amazing experience because it's incredibly intimate. To wake up every 2 hours at, people kept telling me leading up to it and afterwards, good luck getting any sleep, after that. And I will say, you don't get much sleep after having a baby. You just don't. Your sleep schedule is on there. So it's like you get an hour here, an hour here, an hour here, an hour here, but you don't get like 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours in a row for a long time. I will say, it was a milestone that we recently hit where we both, a couple weeks ago, got 5 hours of sleep in a row for the first time probably since having the baby. But and it's getting better. But they definitely don't sleep consistently for a little while because they have to wake up and eat, and you have to change them. And but it is an incredible time. It's not bad. It's amazing because there's just few things as intimate as just being up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and the world is asleep and you're there with your wife and you're just like figuring out how to like keep this little being alive. And it's an amazing thing. But I will say that it's one of the most fascinating things about this is watching her. And for those who are new to watching right now, we had my daughter on a bit earlier, but she's asleep right here. We'll bring her back. But this she in the beginning they only know what is the current moment because they don't have any experiences other than the womb. Really, they don't have any experiences that of things beyond the current moment. So when they just have like, I'm uncomfortable now because I need to be changed. I'm comfortable now because I'm dry. I'm uncomfortable now because I'm hungry. I'm comfortable now because I'm satiated and I've eaten. But after a few weeks, what happens is they start to learn the world. And this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's an amazing thing because it's just amazing. But it also causes them to cry more because it's their only form of really communication. Other than, like, they do use hand signals, like, but it's more like probably reflexes, but it's still hand signals. Like closed fist means like hungry, or like go like this, that means like hungry, usually. And but they once they know the world beyond the current moment, they know that there's like things that they like that they're not having in the current moment. So she knows she loves the bath now because she knows there is a bath. She knows she loves music because she knows there is music. She knows she loves to cuddle, and because she knows that there is cuddling. But before she knows that there is cuddling, here she is. Oh my gosh, she's so asleep. Then she was awake at the beginning of the stream. But then there is no reason to be upset as long as she's comfortable in the moment. So if they cry, you change them, they stop crying. If they if they are hungry, then you feed them and they stop crying. But then all of a sudden, once they know the world, it's like they're hungry, you feed them, they continue to cry because maybe they just want to listen to music. And like, how do they tell you that? And you just kind of have to guess and try different things until like they're just like content. And so that's been quite an experience, and it does make it sometimes more difficult to get them calm, but it definitely also is fascinating from just a cognitive development standpoint. Is when I've talked about on here before, is before the streams, always including this one, I clean my desk and I just make sure everything's orderly, because it is an extension of your mind. Your environment is not separate from your mind. The observed environment that you're within is part of your beingness at that point. And so it's been fascinating to to see her incorporate her world, and we can perceive things beyond our current moment. That's one of the amazing things about being a human being. It's what allows us to create complex music and especially, most importantly, language. And one of the things that's fascinating is, I have very early memories, abnormally early memories as an infant, or not an infant, but a baby, from when I was so young that I was in diapers. And I remember being a few distinct memories from when I was very young. One of them was my mom walking me in the stroller, and I must have been 1 to 2 years old because of where we were living at the time. And she would walk me in the stroller, and in the early mornings, and we would watch the garbage trucks pick up the garbage and dump it into the back. And I remember being fascinated by watching this machine like pick up the garbage and dump it. And then that was like one of my earliest memories. And then another one was I was getting my diaper changed, and I remember that there was a bird cage in the like corner up, hanging from the ceiling in the corner, and it had 2 parakeets in it. And I remember just like staring at the parakeets in the bird cage while I was getting my diaper changed. And that's how young I was. I was getting my diaper changed. And I remember just being fascinated by these birds. And these are my 2 probably earliest memories. And, but most people don't have memories that early because, and I've heard this theory before, but I forgot where I heard it. It wasn't from me, but I think that there's a lot to it, is that before we develop language and we start speaking with English or whatever language is your native language, we don't have memories. We don't keep the memories before that. And that the theory is because like the memories don't get saved because they don't get associated with words, essentially, in order to be saved into your mind, because your mind becomes so oriented around language that these memories don't get saved. And I've never been too good with words, as funny as that is, because I'm like here speaking. But I've never been very good with words. And I've told this story before on here where, early on in this work, I remember like talking to Michael Knowles about like really deep philosophy of language and whether or not language was important to us understanding the world. And I was arguing that you could think of things geometrically and not need language. And to some degree that is kind of true for me. And that's probably why I have such early memories. And what's interesting about those early memories is they were both about they were both instances of fascination. That was I wasn't upset. I wasn't happy. I was just fascinated. And that's all I remember is like the structure of this machine in both cases. The bird in one case as just a machine, as a thing, this moving object, this dynamic object, and then the dump truck in the other one. But it was the same emotion in both cases. And it's interesting because I don't have any other thoughts about it. It wasn't like the yellow or the brightness of that bird or the how cool is this like truck. It was like, this is fascinating. That was just it was like I was looking at it for the first time. I don't know if it was the first time, but that was the kind of mentality that I had. And but most people don't keep memories from before they can speak. And I think the reason is because of language. Most people's earliest memories are around 3 when you start talking. And I wonder what she's going to, be like. And I see her, though, fascinated by certain things. And one of them is she's fascinated by, like, fire. So, like, we put on the screensaver of, like, the fireplace on the TV the other day when it was, like, Christmas and Christmas Eve. And we were just sitting on the couch and talking, and I just noticed that she's just, like, watching the fire. And, like, she was fascinated by it. And when we lit the Hanukkah candles on Hanukkah, we showed them to her, and she was, like, fascinated by it. And I totally get that. Like, if there's anything to be fascinated by, why wouldn't it be fire? That's, like, such a human, like, that was the original television. She doesn't seem fascinated by dogs at all, which is kind of a good thing. Our dogs, she doesn't care about our dogs, which is good. I'd rather have that than her be, like, afraid of them. But I showed her a turtle. She was interested in the turtle. But I wonder if she'll keep any of these, not necessarily these memories, but maybe in like a year or two, if she has any of them. Because I don't think I have any memories from being as young as she is. But like when I was between 1 to 2 years old, like I said, I have those 2 memories, and that's it. I don't think I have any memories other than those 2. But I do see her like trying to speak now for the first time the past like week. She's been like saying like trying to say something when I'm speaking to her. Sometimes she'll just be oh, like she'll like trying to make sounds. And I wonder what motivates that, is it just like imitation, or is it like she's actually got something she's trying to communicate that's specific? It's interesting because it's very hard to tell. And I wonder if in the future with certain interfaces that I'm not endorsing or condemning, like Neuralink or something like that, like will that eliminate, she's making little noises, will that eliminate that barrier of language at that early age? I don't know, but I think it has interesting implications for it for sure. But like I said, it's been an amazing experience, and it's been amazing to see her develop. It's been amazing to go through this entire experience. I will say this, there were times in this, you never know what's going to happen in life. You just don't. Like I said, we make plans, and that we should, but that doesn't mean that life works out exactly how we want. It never does. But there's something to even trying to have kids and not being able to, that is intimate in and of itself. And that in and of itself is valuable to have with somebody. I remember when my wife's water broke, and I'll bring her back up again for people who are here. But hello, little girl, how you doing? When my wife's water broke, she was like, "What are we gonna do?" Okay, here, you can go back to sleep. I'll let you go back to sleep. She's kind of waking up. And she looked at me and she was like, what are we gonna do? Just like as like a immediate reaction. And I just looked at her and I was like, we're gonna, we planned for this, but just so you know, like, whatever happens, like, I'm with you. And that was quite, a comforting thing even for me to say for myself, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how this process is going to play out. And it's a very traumatic one. It's a dangerous one. It is, it's in the Bible. It says, you ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and then you'll be cursed with, painful births, basically, because the head of your children will grow, and because you're going to fit all this knowledge in there. And it has made birth an extremely dangerous thing for humans compared to other animals. And I just remember looking at my wife and being like, whatever happens, I'm with you and you're with me, and we're going to go through this together. And because we don't know how this is going to play out, but I know that I'm here, and that's all that you can control. And is that's the thing about marriage, is like, the commitment of marriage is almost all that you have control over in your life. It's the most important decision that you ever make, is to get married. The second most important decision is who. And that's not as difficult as most people make it out to be. It's more of entering into marriage with the right mentality than it is of finding the perfect person. There is no perfect person. That's why you need to be married, because we are not perfect. Hello, you're waking up? Yes, welcome back. And but you do have control over being there, and it's quite an important thing. So let me get to the questions. But what's up, Jake? She's really in a deep sleep. Oh, she was in a deep sleep. Here she is now, though. She's not in a deep sleep anymore. She's waking up. What are you doing, huh? Eyes are open. Here we go. What are you doing? You're cute. Yes. At least she's not crying. Here she is. She's so adorable. Do you want to say hi to the people? You don't even know what's going on. But yeah, it's an amazing thing, and like I said, there's value in intimacy, and intimacy is the experiences that you have with people that you don't have with anyone else. That's what intimacy is, and so there's intimacy in even the trying and not succeeding in having children. And I just know, I know people struggle with that, and I know what that's like. And you never know what will happen. It can happen when you don't expect it, and it can not happen when you do. But there's value in even the attempt. You learn a lot. You learn about your own vulnerability and mortality and humanity, and you can grow in intimacy with your spouse, because there's something that you're both going through together without anyone else. Hello, you're looking at me, cute. It is so funny how baby animals are just so cute, because if they weren't, it would be way harder to just put up with a lot of the things that come with taking care of them. But that's I say that with no attempt to discourage anybody, but it is work, but they are still cute even when they're screaming. But she's been great. You're doing great. I try and think about how I communicate with her, and it's interesting because when I found out I was having a daughter, it's a totally different experience than finding out that you're having a son. Because as a man, I feel like the default is you think about having a son your whole life. You're like, I'm going to teach him this. I'm going to take him camping. I'm going to teach him this. And then you end up finding out you're having a daughter. And it's like, what do you do then? And you have to figure out how to do that. And I especially think about this because I'm so vocal about certain things involving marriage and gender and modesty and morality. And I'm not claiming to be perfect at all. I'm as flawed as anyone else, and but I do think that I'm pretty aware of a lot of these more moral conundrums and just issues than a lot of personal issues. Not talking about world politics necessarily. I'm talking about personal morals than most people, just because I think about it a lot. That's not because I'm boosting myself up or anything. I'm very much just personally interested in morality, and it makes me think a lot. I think about Moses or something. Moses, I'm not comparing myself to Moses, but Moses had two sons that were apparently nitwits, basically. That's why Aaron took over the priesthood in the Bible. It's because and it's that pastor's kid type of I guess pattern that I was thinking about, how do you avoid that, and what is the role of a father when he has a daughter and a son. And the thing is this, I think, is that mainly your job as a father, whether to a daughter or son, is to be an example. To a daughter, your job is to be an example of, as best you can, of the type of man that you would want your daughter to marry. And and to try and be an example to your son of the type of man that you would want him to be. And that is your job mainly. And I'm not saying that you don't care for the baby. Obviously, baby needs to be changed, change it. If the baby needs to be fed, you feed him. But it is more, it just naturally falls on the mom more, just because they're naturally able to do it more than men are, and just be better at it. But that doesn't mean that the role of a father is not as critical. It is, or it's not critical, I'll say. It is critical. In today's day and age, people will say it's not as important. I don't know if that's true. It might be more important in some ways. Maybe not in the sense of protection or income or something like that, but it is in terms of an example. It's probably even more important because there's not as many good examples as the default around. So you need to make sure that the default is a good example. But whereas in the past, if the father wasn't there, there was plenty of other good examples around that were kind of the default, or better examples. But how you doing? What are you looking at? My ukulele? What do you think? She loves music, and she seems fascinated by music, and it's fascinating to watch her be interested in it. Oh, you're smiling. You're smiling. Hello. But that in today's day and age, the default example of a man in society, I would say, is not probably the best. How you doing? Look at her. Gosh. She's so cute. Sometimes I sit back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a father and this is my daughter, and you're just like, who are you going to be? Who are you? Because, they can't speak yet, but I am learning who she is a little bit. And, but and as much as I say, you don't save memories until after language, I don't, that doesn't mean the subconscious doesn't save them. I don't think that's true. I think the subconscious definitely does save them, but it's just the conscious,
accessible like memories, but that doesn't mean that what's happening now doesn't stamp into their mind. But making fatherhood look easy. She's always this chill, right? Oh yeah, okay. No, she's not always this chill, but she has been great. You know, she's doing great. I keep trying to tell her that, but not that she understands it, but I think that they do understand a lot. They end up understanding pretty quickly, I think, a lot of things. Just generally, that doesn't mean she thinks, oh, great means this and your means this and doing means this. It's like, I was in the kitchen, earlier, and my dog walked into the kitchen. I was like, get out. And he just walked out. And it's like, he understands, exactly what that means. She's going to pick up really quick what language means, even if what phrases mean, even if it doesn't mean, even if she doesn't know the breakdown of the grammar. You say I'm making fatherhood look easy. This is not fatherhood, but it's part of it, It is part of it, But it's not easy, but it's not ridiculously difficult to the point where it's not doable either. It's totally doable. And it's just, it is a challenge, but it's a good challenge. Like, there's no... Fatherhood and marriage are the two most rewarding challenges in my life. And, one of the things that's also difficult, and this is one of the most difficult parts of fatherhood, I will say, is when your baby is born, and you start, especially as a father, right in the beginning, you're still just like, thinking about your wife. You're just like, how's she doing in all this? But as you get to know your baby more, you're like, oh, she's just so cute, or he's so cute. Like, you just become smitten, and it's very easy to naturally put your children before your spouse. I remember being a kid and thinking about like people who were religious, and I was not religious at the time, and I was an atheist basically, or anti-theist. But I was young, I was a kid, and I remember like hearing religious people say, God first, then my wife or husband, then my children. And I remember thinking they were fools and being like, what are you talking about? First of all, God doesn't exist, and you always put your kids first because that's your lines, And the reality is that's wrong. God first, then your spouse, then your children. It has to be that way. And it is difficult to not fall into the trap of putting your child first. And because it's so cute. But your spouse has to come first, because they're the one who you need in order to set even the example of this. There's a story in the Bible, and people will get up in arms with me about this, but it's a very contentious story, and it's the story of the trial of the bitter water. And hi, come here. And the contention is it about an abortion? And basically, in this, a wife is accused of infidelity by her husband, and God makes her drink this, this mixture, fluid, whatever substance, and he says that if it's your baby, that your husband's baby that you're carrying, then all will be fine. But if it's the baby of another, then basically it will cause your calf to fall out. And this has been mistranslated into thigh, because calf then turned into thigh. Calf means like a baby. Like a baby cow is a calf. It's obvious, but people don't want to admit that, because it means that it kind of implies that God is... People say that are afraid that it implies that God is justifying an abortion in the Bible. That's not what's happening. Hi. You're so cute. See, this is... Sometimes she gets upset. You okay? You're doing great. Oh, why are you upset? And, she likes this. You're okay. I might have to get rid of her real quick. Here. Go to mom. And, but what's interesting is I don't take it this way, at all. It's a very specific instance. Oh, okay. Yeah, here. It's when it's this. What this implies to me is it's not about even babies. What it is it's about marriage. This entire passage is basically putting the marriage before even children. That's how I take this. It's not justification of abortion. It's justification of putting the marriage before any other worldly relationships, other than the relationship with God, which is not a worldly one, and it's not. It's about how much God values marriage. That is what this is about, and it's because, as I stated, like when this baby, and I know single parents who are friends of mine from all different kinds of circumstances, and they have done incredible things raising their children, but there's it is I will say that it is, when you have a child and you think about like examples that they're going to have to see in their life, they're going to need an example of a man and of a woman. And they're going to need both aspects of that involved in their life to kind of have a complete picture of human beingness. And like I said before, when we were getting ready to go into the birth experience, and my wife was like, what are we going to do, and I just looked at her and was like, we're going to do, or she was like, what if, she was just saying what ifs basically, and I was like, I'm here. That's the thing that we can control, is that you and me are together through whatever happens. And it really is an important thing. It's amazing, because when I talk to people about this stuff today, about marriage particularly, they're like, marriage means something different to everybody, and everybody's marriage is different, but like also marriage should be have some uniformity to it as well. And so many people will be like, well, you don't need marriage today. That just isn't true. That doesn't mean that there aren't instances of exceptions in people's lives, but that's when things are adverse. That shouldn't be justification of doing that which is the adverse. It means like, yeah, God has grace for us when things are not ideal, but and things can still work out. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also think about the ideal circumstances. And I will tell you, man, like, I don't know how, as a man, yes, like, it's a little different for me. I don't know how I would do this without my wife, but it would be very difficult for her too. She would have to be very reliant upon her sisters and her mom, and that's fine. That's actually probably pretty normal. But then your child goes on without the example of what a man should be, and that's not just an important thing for sons. That's an important thing for daughters too, is to see what type of man to seek. I don't know if you can hear, she's crying right now. I think she's getting changed. She hates being changed, and because she hates being cold. She hates it, and I understand that. I don't like being cold either, but she loves getting a bath. She hates being changed, and but yeah, that's why she's crying. So I don't know if you can hear that, but I can definitely tell she's getting changed. She probably needs to be. So epimonologue, what is it? I don't know what that means, but if you could tell in the chat, that would be great. But yeah, that's that. I don't think she's coming back. I think she's staying out there. But I was going to keep this one kind of short. I'll take any final questions if you want to put them in the chat that you have. Very excited for this new year. I have a lot of plans. I want to do, a number of interviews, and I have some planned, and we'll see, how those go. And I predict they'll be, pretty awesome. And we'll get back to it. like I've said in the previous live stream, it seems like I change things up every 2 years. So we've reached that point. I'm working on some produced content, diving more deeply into sentient singularity theory, specifically not as many I want to focus a little bit more on content that's not so much a commentary, and we'll still do some commentaries because I think they're important, but mainly the difference this year is I think we're going to be producing a lot more content that's specifically focused on sentient singularity theory, and also trying to do a bit more direct engagement with some of the people that we've been doing commentaries on their discussions throughout the year. So very excited. Really appreciate everybody who has been part of this channel these years, and I really would appreciate if you hit that like button, share this with anybody that you think would find it valuable. Thank you, Torin. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and has a Happy New Year, had Happy Hanukkah, had any other holidays that you celebrate. I hope they were great, and that you spent time with your family in this season for sure. It's definitely a season of renewal, and you can see that in all the holidays. It's fascinating that Hanukkah and Christmas are both celebrated with trees of light, and and they're both about this kind of the perpetuation of the tree of light, or the tree of life, and metaphysically they're very similar in what they are celebrating, and I think that just makes sense because of the season. And so I appreciate the grace in me taking a break, and also with the abnormal schedule. So we will get more and more consistent for sure. 53 years of age. I'm guessing you're saying father of 4 here. That is wonderful. I have I have 4 siblings, and I come from a big family. My wife comes from a big family. We're both the oldest, and I think that's what we would love for us as well. So this, God willing, this is not our last child. This is the first of hopefully many, and I think it's having siblings is great. They just hit 11. That's great. 54. Guys, I'm getting up there. I'm going to be 33. What a number. This January. So, I'm not at 54 yet, but it is amazing how quickly time starts to go. I was thinking about it, recently. I was like, I'm going to be 40 years old in less time than it has been since I met my wife. Like, that's crazy. That's wild. And I know it goes faster and faster every year. So it's like, wow. I hope you have 12 children. Me too. That would be wonderful. The tree of life is one of the most holy and recognized symbols on earth. It is. It is the symbol of the cosmos. It's the symbol of creation. It is the symbol of creation. Yeah, it's an incredible time. But if for those of you that didn't see the beginning of this, I did talk a bit more about the story of the birth of my child, and she made a debut, but she's gone. It really flies. It's crazy how I'm looking at her now already, and I'm like, you don't seem like a newborn anymore. Like, she doesn't act like it. She acts totally different already. And then everybody tells me how toddlers are, quite an experience as well. And I'm sure I'll have lots to report on that. It's funny because, last week I was talking about how Yosha Bach had mentioned in the stream that we were discussing how important it is for people who are studying consciousness to look inward on themselves and study their own consciousness from a first-hand perspective. And it's so true. It is how you study consciousness the most. But going through the process of raising a conscious being, that's a human, that you can understand their experience as much most directly, that is quite an experiment in and of itself of understanding consciousness. And so this whole thing is going to be very interesting. When I think about like what is the thing about the toddler stage that's so unique that it's like isolated, and I mean we'll see what exactly how it is, but I'm guessing it has to do with the fact that you're now mobile, like really mobile, and you can go explore the world on your own, not just be introduced to things by your parents. Juliana, she is totally immobile. She can flip side to side a little bit, and that's about it. She can lift up her head and look around, and that's about it. And think about that. Like you're just as a head that gets moved around from place to place, gets changed into whatever clothes your parents want you to wear. You eat whatever your parents want you to eat, basically, and then all of a sudden you become a toddler, and it's like, no, I want to eat what I want to eat. I want to go where I want to go. I want to wear what I want to wear. What a change of a world again. And I'm sure it just flies by, because this has already flown by. It's just a blur, guys. I wish I was a bit more coherent in describing the experience, but also it's so intimate that like there are some things that you just don't want to talk about for a while. Intimate experiences have to kind of stay intimate for a little bit. That doesn't mean forever, but sometimes forever. Some things are forever, to be between you and your wife. Obviously, some things, but other things as well that are not sexual, and it just like plenty of things, and some things are just between you and God. And that intimacy must be, maintained there, and or you and a friend, and but it's just some things you just have to wait to share. I've shared experiences on here, that took me a long time to talk about, and of all kinds, and but that's true of this one. There are things about this process that something inside you tells you not to share right away. But that doesn't mean, you don't eventually share them, but everybody will have that with their own journey with this type of stuff. There are things that are just going to be not meant for the world, but it was an amazing thing. It's been an amazing thing. Fatherhood is an amazing thing. It's wonderful, really is. And husbandship, I guess you could call it, is an amazing thing. It's been wonderful, and just family is an incredible thing. It is a sentient being in and of itself. It is. Your lineage is a single sentient being, especially as that is maneuvering through time, through generationality, and its choices are made on the lineage level, and it is a sentient being in and of itself. A family is a lineage, and that is a being. And when your child is hurt, you feel it, and your spouse feels it, and you all feel it. And when your spouse is hurt, you feel it, emotionally, physically, whatever. And that shared emotion, that null state is unifying. That is kind of what causes the cohesion of sentience. Is a unified sentient experience, which is an emotional experience, primarily. It's an experience of feeling, and it's an incredible thing to just watch the being that you're a part of, even as a family, like expand beyond you. It's fascinating. You're going to be really good when she gets to the why phase that toddlers go through. I hope so. I don't want to be a because I said so type of father. But I do think about some things of like, how do you answer when some questions without just because I said so. But I don't want to be that. But that obviously the answer that you give evolves over time, and to best suit their understanding of the world, to all kinds of things. But it's I'm just it's very easy to like forget what your role is as a father, and probably as a mother too. But it's also very easy to be reminded of what your role is as a mother. It's probably more difficult to be reminded of what your role is as a father, because your primary role as a mother is a caretaker, and it's to like keep everybody comfortable. Keep the children comfortable, give them what they need. They're crying because they're hungry, give them food. They're crying because they're cold, keep them warm. As a father, it's different. Your primary role is to, for one, take care of the mother, and for two, it's almost to like bring them out of the children out of their comfort zone a little bit. I mean, it's a little different when they're an infant, but as she's getting older, it's like, I can see that already a little bit. It's like to challenge your kids just a bit, and also to be the example. And I think that be the example part is very easy to kind of forget, but or it's easy enough to forget. It's not. It's kind of difficult to remember in certain moments, but it is the primary. It's your primary role is to be the example. Secondary would probably be to like challenge your kids a bit, and tertiary would be like to take care of everything that when your wife can't. But I mean, that doesn't mean I don't take care of her on a daily basis. It just means like naturally it does fall on the mother. I mean, they literally can they have everything they need to keep this baby alive and bring it into the world, built into their very being. It's an amazing thing. It's just wild to see. It's just fascinating that like all these things, and I will say this, like, and there's a reason for it, but like we sexualize all these aspects of women, breasts and hips and all kinds of things, and there's a reason for that, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but in the way it just depends on how you do it, and it needs to be in the right context. But we have almost, this experience has kind of made me realize like we've forgotten really, like, as a general culture, what this is, this tool that is the female body is really for. It's not just an object of visual appreciation, even though I appreciate it, as much as any other man. But it's also this incredible tool that just can, bring this baby into this world and keep them developing in the womb, and then birth it into the world, and then keep it alive and feed it. And it's just amazing. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. And all of these things that we've just kind of, as a general culture, have made meaningless beyond just like visual satisfaction, and which there's nothing wrong with including that as part of the joy of being human, of course. Like, I'm not going to dissuade that, but like I'm just saying that doesn't mean it has to be public. It shouldn't be public, but but it's just incredible to watch the female body do its thing, like what it was designed to do. It very much so. That is just, it gives you a new appreciation for it, in a different way. As a man, as soon as you hit puberty, you appreciate it for many reasons. But like when you become a father, it's like another form of appreciation has been added to this. It's just an incredible machine. It's just amazing, really mind-blowing. They say having a kid is better than having reptiles, I suppose. I believe it. It is. And I love reptiles. As anybody knows, who follows this channel, I have a large collection of reptiles that I work with, and it's been my passion for years is biology and herpetology, which is the study of reptiles and amphibians, and zoology, but my entire life. But this is more fascinating than even that, which is amazing for me to say. If I'm saying that, then then you should take it as true, probably, because that is definitely my passion. But there's just nothing like staring at your kid and being like, this is my child. Like, that's amazing. It's amazing. And just thinking about like, what are they going to grow up to be? It's just an amazing thing. But like I've said before, though, it's one of the things that you just got to remember is like marriage. Your marriage comes first. Your marriage is the environment of the children. And if you skew the marriage for the sake of the children, you're actually doing a disservice to the children. So you have to put your marriage first. And so again, even after this experience, I'm going to continue to just hawk marriage on this channel because it is the glue. It's the glue on of society, if you know quantum physics. So anyways, hit the like button, please. I really appreciate it. Everybody on here, like I said, and I'm going to keep this one short, but I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. I will be back, I think next week. I will look at the calendar, but I think so. Like I said, I'm trying to get on a more typical schedule. We're probably going to go back to the Sundays pretty soon, but it's been a bit difficult to do that with the holidays. So now that the holidays are going to be over, probably the next stream will be not this upcoming Sunday, but the next Sunday after that. And so that will probably be the next stream. But thank you, everybody. Peace.